All right, what's up, y'all? Let's just get right into it. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Today is the 11th of August, 2026. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 215. The title of this, and you'll see why, I'll explain what I'm going to explain here. But yeah, the title is If It Was Just for the Smartphone. Not this one I'm holding here, but I'm going to talk about what's going on. The one that I'm filming this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast with. But there's a lot with this, okay? Let's play something on the little coat of the guitar here. Beautiful little Cordoba Mini 2 flamed mahogany. I was doing a lot of fingerstyle earlier today. Anyway, it is what it is. Let's play that much for now. Just because 1/4 of In the Image Clothing Company is In the Image Clothing Company music, and we do a lot with music, rhythm and poetry, spoken word, singing, guitar playing, lyricism. Yeah, geared around the gospel of Jesus Christ with the messages. Now here's the thing. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, this is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, but you don't have to be the slightest bit religious, okay? We're all on the same earth here, man. We're all human beings within this universal human design, but the gospel or good news of Jesus Christ, which it just is what it is. Jesus Christ is who we know to be God, and how we know who God is. That's really the point there, is it's an explanation of who God is. We have an understanding. Otherwise, this person can say that God works like this, and this person can say he could never do those things. He only does this, and how could any of us be right if the God that we're talking about is who created us? Before we could ever try to figure out who he was there in the beginning, as he was, and he doesn't change. The same, yesterday, today, and forever, also called the truth. This is the God that I serve. A God who's perfect. A God who gave me the opportunity I'm going to discuss in this video, and this is a weird understanding of this to a lot of people probably, if it was only for the smartphone. Well, let's just get right into this. We'll talk about the other 3 sides of In the Image Clothing Company in this if we do. I already talked about In the Image Clothing Company music, but there's 4 sides to us, and we'll talk about the main side of In the Image Clothing Company and In the Image Clothing Company Poodles more throughout here if we do, but if not, there's just a little bit of an explanation. We're a clothing company, okay? Kind of. We're really a clothing company, but allowing the body to work is our slogan under the main side, where it all started. One of our 4ths to us. So, anyway, smartphones. 2026 is the year, right? We've had smartphones, little devices like this, a cell phone that's got a screen. It's got a touch screen. You can use your fingers and just touch the screen and things happen. It's crazy, okay? This stuff didn't exist until like 20 years ago. Okay. No, really more like 15 to 20 years ago from 2026 this year. I mean, this is a really new invention, you know, as far as like in the grand scheme of human being existence. But nowadays, everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket, and it's been like that for about 15 years, okay? Just about everybody has a smartphone. Well, in your pocket, but In the Image Clothing Company, allowing the body to work. Don't put anything in your pockets, ever. It'll change how your hips work, traveling down to your feet, and traveling up your spine from your hips, to the tip of your head, through your jaw, stabilizing your entire body, and out to the tips of your fingers. I'm serious, okay? We discussed the anatomy of the human body in extreme depth under In the Image Clothing Company's main side. Allowing the body to work. Clothing is just the only thing physically placed onto the human being, the literal word of clothing. Anything at all, right? Placed onto anything else. So, human being clothing, in this case. Dog products on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. Okay, collars, leashes, harnesses, anything placed onto a dog is literally clothing the dog. These things need to stay centered, fit correct, and be made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials. At baseline, and we get into this discussion of these things in depth. There's no opinion to that kind of stuff. It's just physics, you know. Motion. Measurable mathematical degrees of hinges, levers, and rotations. Okay, yikes. Determined by the shape and length of the bones in the body that grow by themselves. Designed in the image of God. In the image of Jesus Christ, we're a clothing company. Our 5-word company name. I have been doing this for almost 2 years at this point. And when I say that, I've filmed hundreds and hundreds of videos where I've said similar things to that. So, got a lot of experience doing what I do. why I say it as I do. The founder and leader for life of In the Image Clothing Company. I'll be here for the rest of my life doing this. We've got this thing set in stone at this point for sure. Certainly permanence, okay? But yeah, smartphones. So we've got these things, and I had this one in my hand right here. This is a discussion on God. Let's get to this. Just hear me out, please, for your sake, to see how perfect God really is, because he is. Everything I did under In the Image Clothing Company until around May. The end of April to the beginning of May. I think it was like right at the very beginning of May, like May 3rd or 4th or something. I've got a video in this device that I'm filming this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast with from the very day that I purchased this little device this year, just a few months ago, down in St. George, Utah. But yeah, up until then, meaning from the founding of In the Image Clothing Company, the 23rd of September, 2024, up until somewhere around the end of April, but I think it was right into the beginning of May, 2026, this year. I filmed everything I did, anything I did at all, under our 5-word company name of In the Image Clothing Company, with this little smartphone in my hand right here. I'm just going to say what it is. It's an iPhone 12 mini. It's broken. I broke the back glass on this thing a year plus ago. A year and a half ago or more, probably, around that time at least. A year to a year and a half ago, maybe. So it's been a while, okay? And then, it was still working, and I was still using it the whole time, filming all the videos we do. We've got around 700 videos under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company alone. Some of them are shorter snippets taken from full-length videos. We've got 215, as of this one, episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And up until at least episode 200, it was all filmed and the audio taken from this little iPhone 12 mini. All of these things. In the Image Clothing Company Poodles. There's 70 to 80 maybe videos on there. In the Image Clothing Company Music. There's hundreds and hundreds of pieces of music, freestyles, and just fun stuff I do with guitar and lyricism. Personally, it's only been me doing all this stuff as of now still. Up until now, the 11th of August, 2026. So we'll have a beautiful team always once we do under In the Image Clothing Company. But the founder, me, you've got to found the thing, and it's all been done up until a couple months ago, and right at the beginning of May, give or take, the end of April maybe, 2026. But since the 23rd of September, 2024, it was all done until just a couple months ago on this little iPhone 12 mini. Permanent pieces of documentation, permanent pieces of truth that we don't get to decide or change as human beings. Things like gravity and physics and the body growing by itself. Discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ here under In the Image Clothing Company podcast that we read in books and documentations that were written down thousands of years ago from human beings who were not us, right? So all these things, these documentations, as I've said so many times, is just another date-marked documentation under any of the 4 sides of In the Image Clothing Company that it is at the time. In this case, blah, 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 and then I'll say what it is, right? In this case, 215 episodes, as of this one right here, of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Just documentations is a lot of what this is, and the point of the gift, as I call it, of video, and how we've done so much of what we are as In the Image Clothing Company up until now, the 11th of August, 2026. Date marking everything as I say the dates so often, and just saying the titles of the video in the video again and again and again, and it's just documentations. It's for credibility. It's for longevity. It's because we are permanent here, because we're doing it properly, praying through everything and giving the glory to God in all the ways that we can. Just being imperfect human beings, as we are in this life. Well, this little iPhone 12 mini, the back was broken. The back sheet of glass on this device, it was broken for a long time, right before I went to St. George. So it would have been in April, the middle of April. My mother bought me a new back glass for this phone, and I put it on here. And so I scraped off the old back glass. It's all glued on there with adhesive, and I put this new one on. And I didn't do the most professional job because I didn't really care to. This thing's already, 7-ish plus years outdated. give or take at this time. And, it's just, I'm just kind of limping it along at this point, back in April of this year, 2026. But I wanted to have a relatively nice sheet of glass on the back of it, kind of how it should be. Before I went down to St. George, Utah, I moved down there, not knowing that I was just going to be homeless for almost 2 months, and ended up moving back here to Utah County for now. But the microphone's also broken. Not only was the back glass broken, but there's 2 microphones on this device, one at the bottom here, and the one on the back by these camera lenses. And the back microphone hasn't worked for months. It's been a few months. And, right? Yeah. Yeah, right? Pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, when I put the new glass on, I accidentally ripped that microphone out of the back as I'm scraping the old glass off the back and the adhesive to try to have this glass lay on the back nicely. Well, I'm pretty sure the microphone was already not working, and then I just ended up accidentally ripping it off at that point. But either way, maybe it was working until I put this new back on. But regardless, just the point is, this device is in pretty rough shape. But I've limped it along. I've used it and used it and used it, and it's done so much for this company, for my lifelong career. Okay, but it's basically on its last leg in ways. Okay, if you will, meaning it's basically time to retire this thing. If nothing else, just if everything worked on it, which it doesn't quite, but if it did, it's just older, it's outdated, but the battery in it isn't working very well anymore. It just charging this thing was something I had to do often because the battery didn't last very long. And so then I'm out there filming an hour plus long video under In The Image Clothing Company's main site, just outside in a field somewhere, like a soccer field or whatever I was doing at the time, which is what a lot of those videos are. Was earlier In The Image Clothing Company videos, but even now I do it similar, right? But filming episodes of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, I just had to charge this thing, make sure it was really full of battery before I went to do anything. And the battery just doesn't last like it did when the device was new, but it's also just this really small little device. It's branded as a mini, which is good for the hands, and there's a lot to why I had this in the beginning. But the point is of discussing smartphones in this. There is a point to this, and the depth of explanation on it that is needed as well, really to see what's being explained here, because I went down to St. George, Utah, okay, where we're based, as I say, as In The Image Clothing Company, even though I don't live there currently. Well, I did for almost a month and a half, almost 2 months, a little over a month and a half, close to 2 months, up until June 17th. I came back here on June 17th this year. I mean, this is just like a month and a half ago I came back, give or take, 2 months ago, right? It's the 11th of August right now, 2026. While I was down there, I've told a good amount of the story. There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled Goodbye Dante. My beautiful standard poodle Dante, I rehomed him on the 16th of June and then moved back up here on the 17th of June to Utah County from St. George, Utah. I got to ride back up here because I was homeless and it was a rough situation. And it's not that I had to get rid of Dante because I was homeless and there was no other option, but it was just time for Dante to be rehomed. And just praying through all of this, and it just is what it is. Things that I didn't expect, but also things I'm not the slightest bit upset about. I love Dante still just as much as I always did, but currently at least he's with a different owner. Some really good people, a really good young couple. But while I was down there, I spent a lot of time literally on the streets, homeless, sleeping outside, just on a concrete slab with a towel under me, a lot of the time, or just on the grass, just where I could that, was as legal as it could be. It's illegal to sleep outside here in public places in Utah, which makes sense to keep the streets nice. But if you don't have anywhere to go, you don't have anywhere to go. But part of the time I was just sleeping outside. Somebody ended up paying for Dante and I to get a hotel room, a motel, the Sands Motel down there in St. George, Utah. We spent 4 nights there at first that somebody paid for. But we never asked for anything while we were down there. We, meaning Dante and I. Okay. Dante's like my son. I love him like my own biological human being son, if I had one right now. I treat him like that too. I love him so much. But, we were in this motel, and, well, there's a lot to this because, yeah, that we'll probably save that part of the story for another time. But Dante and I were in this Sands Motel down in St. George, Utah. And after 4 nights, I was like, man, we probably need a little bit more time here while we have a place to stay so I can try to figure out what's going to be happening, where we're going to stay permanently, and how we're going to keep just doing what we need to under In The Image Clothing Company, and, you know, just taking steps forward from there because we moved. I mean, we packed up here. I signed a contract with my grandparents that I would leave, and then while I was down there in St. George, Utah, I actually had an in-person conversation with my grandparents. They have a house down there as well, actually. There's a lot to this story, but they told me I could come back up here and, on conditions, and I'm here for now, and blah, 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 blah. Back in their house, but with permission to be. There's so much silliness to all this. It's silly, but also just, it is what it is, and yikes, there's a lot to the story. I'm not leaving things out on purpose. It's just, let's stick to the point of the smartphone and why we're talking about a smartphone and why it matters so much. Because it does. We got given some things. We never asked for money. We never asked for food. But we went down there with basically no money and no food. Okay, just some food in a backpack and just some money that my mom and my sister sent me down with. Like $150, right? US is basically all we had going down there. There's a lot to this story. Like, this is something that I'll just talk about more if and where I do, just going forth, because this month and a half to 2 month period was like an entire lifetime in the ways that it was. It was crazy, being truly homeless with my beautiful dog Dante, man. It was ridiculous. Just so much that happened is what I'm saying. So many stories I could tell, and I probably will. I don't have any intention to leave anything, like hold anything back or leave anything out. But to put the focus on the smartphone, people had given us some money, and I knew I needed a new smartphone. And it wasn't like I just had some desire to have some new technology that came out, but this thing, like I'm saying, this little iPhone 12 mini that I had used for every single documentation under In The Image Clothing Company's 5-word company name at that point in, the end of April, the beginning of May 2026, it just doesn't work very well anymore for what I need it for. I need at least a relative good documentation of the audio of me speaking what I'm speaking. That's the point of documenting it under things like this, In The Image Clothing Company podcast, but any of the sides of the four of In The Image Clothing Company, and it's just, this thing it just wasn't really the best at all. And not only that, but I was in need of something better for my company, for my career. I don't need to justify spending money on anything. I can do whatever I want with money that's mine, no matter how I got it and whatever, right? Like, I mean, unless it was in a legal way. But do you see what I mean? Like, none of this is any kind of, like, explanation. I'm explaining myself. Oh my gosh. No. I just know that people are going to look at it like that, no matter who knows the situation or not, But the point is, I was homeless, and I didn't really have food. I didn't know where my food was going to come from, not even just for the next day, but I didn't have a cooler or a refrigerator. I didn't have a stove or any way to cook things, except for those few nights I was in the motel there. Like, I was homeless for 2 weeks before that. Yeah, like on the streets, literally true full-on homeless down in the Mojave Desert of St. George, Utah. In the town, but yeah, I mean, it's as real as it gets, man. I was truly homeless, and I had my dog to take care of as well. That's why I'm saying, it might not really make sense to a lot of people to spend $200 US currency on this device that I'm talking about. Episode 215, if it was only for the smartphone. Of In The Image Clothing Company podcast here, right? It's just, if it was only for the smartphone, it would have been worth it. Let me talk about this because I downloaded this app. Many of you probably know it, at this time period at least. Facebook, okay? I used to use that, and then I didn't. For like 3-4 years, I haven't used Facebook. But I downloaded Facebook. I created a Facebook account sitting in this motel because I knew that I needed to try to find myself a new smartphone so that I could film more higher quality videos for In the Image Clothing Company for my permanent lifelong career and company. And this is what's going to support my family and change lives across the entire earth. Every body who has one and everyone who has a body is who the information applies to under In the Image Clothing Company when we're just discussing universal truth that we don't get to decide or change as human beings. That's just what truth is in all senses of anything that could ever be called truth and actually be that. God, for example, unchanging. The information that we discuss, that's God, the design of Jesus Christ, the human being, and how it works. So I downloaded Facebook, this application, because there's this part of Facebook called Facebook Marketplace. I've sold and bought things on both ends of buying and selling on Facebook Marketplace many, many times. I used to buy and sell things, mountain bikes and dirt bikes. I both bought and sold on Facebook Marketplace, and other things in life as well. But just saying, I've had experience with this. I just knew I needed to find a cheap, or at least relatively cheap, used smartphone that was quite an upgrade from this one that I had that just wasn't working well enough for what I was doing with it because it's actually my lifelong career. That's what I mean, is I'm not justifying, but I need to make it clear on how much of a big deal this is. It's not just about some smartphone because it's the newest, latest, and greatest one that I wanted. But this is how I'm running my company. Is a lot of it through what I call the gift of video. And I film it on the smartphone just because they can do that. And smartphones in modern day, they call, they text, they email, they have games, they've got music, they've got cameras. I mean, it's insane. Like, it's actually ridiculous. The amount of features is in this little tiny handheld device. It's crazy. Like 15, 20 years ago, well, let's say like 30 years ago, people would have never even possibly would have been able to dream up what these things can do in this small of a little package through just technological advancements. It's crazy. Gosh. There's a point to this about the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's not just discussing how far technology has come, and that in itself is a discussion to have. I mean, it's crazy. But I downloaded Facebook Marketplace. And, well, I downloaded Facebook, and I had to make a Facebook account, and then I got onto the subcategory of Facebook Marketplace off of Facebook. Right, there's your explanation. And I looked up used smartphones in St. George, Utah, but keep in mind, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a skateboard, or a bike, or a scooter, or a motorcycle, or anything at the time, and I had my dog Dante. And we were in a motel that didn't allow dogs, but somehow the owner of the motel let us in. For 6 nights we were in that motel. It didn't allow dogs, but I don't even know for sure if Dante barked a single time in those 6 days we were in that motel. He might have barked once, but I literally honestly don't remember. I just don't want to exaggerate. I say that kind of to give context on how good of a dog Dante is. A lot of that's the work I did with him through training him. I mean, under In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, we talk a lot about being a good owner of dogs and how to train dogs, how to speak to dogs, simplifying dog commands, There's a lot we do on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, but God, I love Dante so much. I'm in this motel with my dog Dante in St. George, Utah. Sitting there on the edge of the bed. Which I don't normally do. I usually sit on the ground, but I'm on Facebook Marketplace at the time, looking for used smartphones. Anyway, I come across this Motorola Razr 2024. This device I'm filming episode 215 right now of In the Image Clothing Company podcast on. And it's the title is about this device. if it was only for the smartphone. Because if it was only to get this smartphone and nothing else happened while I went down to St. George, Utah, it would have been worth it. We could say it like this, it would have been enough. And I'm going to give some more context on why I word it like that. Rather than just saying it would have been worth it, it would have been enough. The gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm going to talk about this, but I was looking at other iPhones, newer iPhones than this little iPhone 12 mini, because it's 2026, and this thing came out before 2020. I don't know, 2019, 18, 17, maybe somewhere around in there. I think it's like 2017, though, really. Anyway, it's just, technology gets outdated quickly because of how quickly it's advancing, is the thing. And so sometimes you can't do things as well as you really should or need to be able to with a device if it's outdated, because it's software. It's not hardware only. It's a different thing with technology than just the things before this kind of stuff existed. It just works differently. So anyway, this man-made technology, things that are damaging our bodies in 2026 and going forth that no human being ever had to deal with in the past. It was impossible for them to have to. Right. It's inventions of human beings. In the Image Clothing Company's main side, though, we talk about allowing the body to work. Rounded hand arches on a flat smartphone, right? It doesn't work so well. It doesn't work. Okay, let's talk about this, though. We've got different length forefingers that mesh and wrap evenly around a different length opposable thumb that plays an entirely different function than the fingers. The hands only work around, and a lot of these things are so flat in modern day, but let me talk about what I'm talking about here. Okay, I'm talking about it. So let's continue, because if it was only for the smartphone, if that was the only reason I went down to St. George, Utah for those almost 2 months, that yeah, a month and a half to 2 months I was down there, with Dante. Yeah, I mean if nothing else came from it, is what I'm saying, like accomplishment wise, other than I was able to be given money from people that I didn't ask for, but enough money that I didn't have before, but I was able to use it to purchase this little smartphone device that I didn't have before to just up the video quality. Not that I need anything higher quality than it needs to be, but I'm trying to document things rather properly because these are permanent documentations under In the Image Clothing Company. And so by going down there and being homeless, people offered me money. I then had $200 at least. I got more money than that, and I wasn't out there like asking or begging for money. And in fact, I don't want to word this incorrect, but turned people away, if you will. Meaning, if people asked me if I needed help, I was usually like, we're taking it one day at a time. We'll be okay. I didn't ask for anything. No food, no money, no nothing down there. Because if I did, we would have had a place to stay. I probably could have just gotten more money just by asking it from people than if I were to go get some full-time job. Really, I mean, that's the truth, is that's how that would have worked if I was trying to ask for things like that. Just to give the context on, I didn't ask for a single thing being homeless down there for almost 2 months. I mean, we were in some rough situations, literally almost death on my part. I was putting Dante before myself, making sure he was fed and taken care of, and we were actually literally eating out of garbage cans a lot of the time. I mean, but yeah, like it was severe. No kind of over exaggeration when I say I was homeless. I mean, I was truly, like, completely homeless. And no complaint either. Look at this wolf spider, and stuff like this as well. Oh shoot, I want to get him in the camera for the sake of the documentation on why I'm saying this. But stuff like this is just being homeless down there gave me a lot of perspective on a lot of things, and stuff like this, sleeping outside with the spiders and scorpions and bugs, gnats and things. And here's a wolf spider. I don't know if you got to see him. I'm trying to pick it up on this device, this little wolf spider in this room here. But my point is that a lot happened, okay, down there in St. George, Utah, and it was so hard, so rough. I mean, physically, not just like emotionally hard for me to handle, but I literally almost died many times. I mean, combinations of things, the heat and just walking often tens of miles a day. Here's that wolf spider. Oh, you probably got to see him. Shoot. Sorry, bro. I'm not trying to mess with you too much, but being so thirsty and hungry and just the struggle of sleeping outside. I didn't even have a sleeping bag at first. I had to walk over to a sporting goods store and buy a sleeping bag with money that other people gave me, like just so I wasn't extra cold because it was still cold, at the end of April into May when we first got down there this year, 2026 in St. George, Utah. Even though it's the Mojave Desert, it's hot. For a lot of the year, it's relatively cold. Deserts get cold still, and especially at night like that. So my point is, so much happened, and it was truly very hard. I don't mean to brag, but it's actually on the other end. Is I downplay things so much that when I say a phrase like this, where it's something that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do, just the experience I had being homeless down there in St. George, Utah this year, 2026, with Dante. It's not that I'm trying to brag, like look how tough I am, but I joke about it and I laugh through things and I really downplay the severity of things, injuries and just like really life-threatening situations and just hardships in life, and I just don't put the focus on how hard things are. If I were to really sit there and just explain it truthfully, just as it was, and just talk about everything that I dealt with down there and my dog Dante as well. Yeah, I mean it's something that so many people wouldn't be able to do. I just kind of brush it off, man. A lot of times I don't realize how severe things really are because hear me correct on why I'm saying this, please, for your sake, because don't think I'm saying something I'm not. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm an extremely tough person. And I've had an extremely hard life, and we all have hardships where we do. I see how quickly I just try to put the focus off of me because I downplay and downplay and downplay things that are just crazy, severe. Like pain. Like the other night my toe was bleeding really bad. I've had my toe in pretty rough shape for about a month and a half, like right around since I got back from St. George here to Utah County. Had an ingrown toenail, and just the bones of my toe were adjusting, getting out of chronic patterning as we do under the main site of In the Image Clothing Company. And I couldn't make it up. I mean, you can see the change in my body. Again, under the visual and physical transformation you can tell happening through the gift of video. It is what it is, and just documenting this stuff. It's just what it is, and anyway, the other night I was just going through so much pain, like ridiculous pain to where it was hard for me to breathe because it was just that severe. And then I was just laughing about it and just brushing it off. And I'm giving that context because we just have different personalities as human beings in life. And I really truly am, with no intention to try to sound a certain way behind this, just in all truth, I'm an extremely tough person. That doesn't have to sound like a good thing or sound like a bad thing. I'm just saying it's the truth. And I've got a high pain tolerance, and I just keep pushing through things. And sometimes, maybe a little bit too much, right? Sometimes it's not the best thing. It's not only something you can brag about. Sometimes you can cause damage by not giving certain things the attention they need because you just keep pushing through anyway. And I'm getting emotional about it because I know, I get it. Shoot. I'm stubborn, really stubborn, prideful, and hard-headed, and I don't give up. And don't try to question if that's the case, because it doesn't matter what you think, I don't give up. And so I was down there going through a lot of hardships. I mean, going through hell, homeless. And the reason I'm giving a lot of that context, a big reason at least, other than just explaining the story, because it's just a real life story that people can get stuff from, and relate to in ways as well, for sure. But I mean, that's the thing. We go through the same problems in different ways, or different problems in the same ways as human beings, as I've said, and just as it is. And so eh, people can get stuff from your story, no matter what your story is or who you are or how unique it seems. It's not. Your situation's not very unique. And that's a good thing, because people can understand, is what I'm saying, even if you think they couldn't, no matter what it is. Okay. Not that people go through the exact same things as you in the exact same way and they experience it the exact same. That's not the case. But I mean, we live such similar lives, even though it seems ridiculously different. So many different cultures across the earth, and it just is what it is, though. I mean, we're just human beings. We just come to this earth and experience it, and then we die. And the next person comes, experiences it, and dies. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's all it is as far as this life. I mean, really, truly, seriously, yeah. The truth is truth, man. I mean, that's it. And there's more to it, okay? But that's what we do here is just experience on Earth as a human being. Oh my gosh. Anyway, the point is, what I'm saying is, you need some context to be able to understand this story for what it is, and the importance of this smartphone, and why it is such a big deal, and how God works. Hear me correct. This video's title, though, well, this episode's title, episode 215 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, If It Was Only for the Smartphone. Well, if, then it would all have still been worth it. Being homeless, and all that I suffered through down there, having to rehome my dog, and I don't know if it's just temporary or if he's actually permanently not my dog anymore. I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I know I've said things, under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, like I wouldn't even want him back, and just the context has to be there on why I say that. Just meaning it. I'm not trying to just have what I want in life. It's just I'm trying to have God's will be the focus and everything. And if I get Dante back, I'd love to. But also, if I'm not supposed to have him anymore, then I can be content with that as well. It's just I still love Dante the same as I always have. Okay. He was never the problem. I've made that so clear. I mean, it's like I'm talking about a son. Some people don't even really care much about dogs. I love dogs like humans. Okay. And that was extremely hard to give up Dante. And that's what I'm saying is all of this would have been just fine, no matter what. If the only accomplishment going down to St. George, Utah that I could possibly measure, that we could actually, say that was a real accomplishment that happened, because it didn't work out how I thought. I thought I was just going to be down there permanently. I'm going to go back down when it happens, and when that's God's plan for it to be time for me to go down there and have a place to live and have things start working. It's more normal. My life just hasn't looked normal for the past 3 or 4 years. Personally, me, Evan Strong. I mean, outside of In the Image Clothing Company, but In the Image Clothing Company and Evan Strong are one. That's an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, but it's just the case. I mean, I'm the founder, but this is my life. This is my career. This is my creation, if you will. It is. Okay. My family and my dogs and my kids and my team and everything, right? This is how we're gonna have income, and this is just documentations. This is how I leave behind who I was. This is how I leave my legacy, is through In the Image Clothing Company. It's just what it is. And so figure out what it is before you are confused about what's going on here. Oh, you're a clothing company. What are you talking about being homeless in a desert for? And why is it about a smartphone when you're talking about God? You got to see what's going on here if you want to know what's going on here, But yeah, if nothing else came out from being homeless, like a benefit or like an accomplishment, because I lost things. I lost my dog, at least temporarily. Even still as of now, the 11th of August, 2026. I love Dante so much. But, I had a lot of hard stuff happen being homeless down there. And no matter what, I mean, if nothing that we could say that was beneficial came from all that, except for me getting this smartphone, it would have been worth it still. It would have been enough. I didn't have the money. I didn't have $200 before I went down to St. George. Sounds crazy. So let me get this straight. You go down to St. George, Utah, you're entirely homeless for almost 2 months. You have to give up your dog. You literally almost die. for multiple different reasons throughout this time. You're dealing with insane extreme heat, well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, when I say well over, like 105 is what it was getting up to, in the middle of June before I came back up here. Like that last week, it was hot. But it was so cold some of the nights. You slept out in and on whatever you could. And I spent some time at the homeless shelter down there called Switch Point. I was there for about 6 days as well. And then I spent some time on my grandparents' patio. Actually, a good amount of time there, but a couple weeks completely just on the streets, just finding a different place to sleep just about every night. I slept at the same park, a couple different parks, a few nights each time, or a few nights at each of those couple different parks. I slept just right outside the school bus yard on a slab of concrete. I didn't have a pad. I just slept on a towel. I don't sleep with a pillow anyway, but just, I'm just on the ground. I was truly homeless, man, pulling everything I owned around with me in a wagon that I also bought at that sporting goods store with money that other people gave me that I didn't ask for, but was so grateful to have, as well as it's just, there was so much to the situation. I mean, true lowest of low, literal bottom of the barrel homeless. I had nothing except for my dog, who I had to give up the day before I had to move back from the town that I went to for the town. I mean, I went there for the location. There's a video under In The Image Clothing Company's main side titled St. George, Utah for the location. It's for the environment, for the Mojave Desert, for the more pure air down there, and the groundedness of the sandstone rock, and the good people of Utah, and the beautiful community in St. George. That's why I went there, or for real reasons. I didn't have some dream going down there. I still don't. None of this is a dream, as far as like something I'm hoping for in the Image Clothing Company, and I've made that so clear. It never has been. Just to be so clear again, for those in my life through this time who have been kind of like mocking me for building a company that's changing every and any human being's life who ever comes across our information, I have an absolute certainty that no matter who you are, ever, any generation of human being to ever live, we have information that applies to you under In The Image Clothing Company, and applies to you in a life-changing kind of way that you do not know until you come across In The Image Clothing Company. I know that for an absolute certainty. We discuss the anatomy of the human body in such depth, it's ridiculous. The understanding we have here, and why it's not working. I mean, this is what we're doing, and this is my whole point of this company. And there's been so many people, it's people in my own personal family, is two-faced, talk behind your back all negative, and then pretend they love you so much to your face people. And I'm not even talking bad about them, but that's how I've been treated. And other people in the family have seen it as well. Those that are just aware of what's really going on, they're like, yeah, all right. It's like you almost can't talk about it, because it's not going to change the situation. Meaning, like, you can't address it with people because they're going to still do what they're going to do anyway. That's just life. But it's unfortunate that people don't see what's really happening, no matter who's doing what. It's not about me. It's just in general, I'm just one of the ones experiencing it in this case, in this situation. And I didn't expect to talk about this kind of stuff in this episode necessarily, but it's good that I am. It's just context. It's real life. It's truth. Oh my gosh, it's crazy though, because the point is, it would have been enough for me personally if all that I got out of going to St. George, in the spring into the early summer, late spring, whatever it was exactly, but the end of April to the 16th of June this year, 2026, when I was fully, truly homeless, if all I actually got out of it was just this smartphone, it would have been totally worth it. Even having to give up Dante, even having to struggle so much every day, man. It was a real struggle. I mean, really, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of perspective you have. I mean, even if you live in some kind of tribe in the rainforest, it's not like I'm just some kid from first world America, United States here, where I think that, I'm not as privileged as I might seem. I'm serious. I mean it. I mean, I don't care what you think about me. I'm not trying to convince anyone, but I don't live the kind of life that lines up with the society that I live in. That's just the case. And that's just me, personally. That's a personal thing. That's Evan Strong. I'm just very unique. you know, yeah. I've got that like hipster kind of lifestyle, meaning that's what people would label it as. Like, oh, this guy's just so different. He's always doing things that are so different than everybody else. Why don't you just be normal? I just do what I do. I'm just making it clear. I have perspective. I have understanding of different cultures and different situations and different societies across the earth. A lot of it's because I've seen so many television shows, truly, which has been amazing. I've talked about this under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, how much we can actually learn from TV. Really. But just meaning anywhere they place documentations. Like I'm saying, under the gift, as I call it, of video, is what we do so much of under In the Image Clothing Company. It's like any kind of documentary, right? Documentation. It's just literal wording. A video, a writing, a photograph, something that somebody documented or recorded of something that we can learn about because they did those things and then documented them happening. Anyway, I know what it's like across the earth, not out of actually being there, out of her personal experience, but people talk about being cultured, and I am. I really am. I'm not here to convince, but I'm here to give context, because otherwise you might think that I just didn't get my third course to my meal, and right, and I got upset. Oh, no, I mean, I've been homeless. There's been a lot to my life. The point is, that I'm laying pieces of permanent documentation. Even this, I mean, this makes me a credible person to be around. Somebody who's got experience in life. I don't get worked up over silly things. Some things may seem silly to others that mean a lot to me, but like in general, things in life that are just kind of petty things, I don't even care. That's what I mean. Like I'll be in so much pain and not even notice, which isn't a healthy thing to do in a lot of ways. But I'm just saying, my focus is on God. My focus is on just keep pushing, because if not, you're gonna not make it when you're homeless. I'm not kidding. And I've experienced similar things in my life before I was homeless like that. Yeah, I mean, I've experienced some hardships that were very similar to that in a lot of ways. Years ago, in my childhood, I really have. I'm not exaggerating it. Like, just I want to make it clear so you know who you're getting your information from. If you're looking up stuff under In the Image Clothing Company, hearing things from me, Evan Strong, it's good for people to know who you are, so they know who you are. And I have lived through hell time and time again. I've gone through some ridiculous hardships, and I mean, 2 open heart surgeries, parents' divorce, and I'm not trying to give some sob story. I'm giving perspective on my life. If you'd like to know who I am, whoever you are on the other side of this documentation, because it was hard as can be, bro. I mean, it was just about as hard as it gets before I literally would have just died. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. Just being so fatigued physically and so thirsty and so hungry. And I mean, there's a lot to it, because I'm also sleeping out there with snakes and scorpions. I saw a scorpion. We saw 8 or 9, maybe around 10 snakes at least. I saw different rattlesnakes. I saw a sidewinder rattlesnake, and then I think it's called the Mojave Desert rattlesnake, and there's like 4 different types of rattlesnakes down there. There's Western Diamondback rattlesnakes, and these are poisonous. Well, they're venomous snakes. They'll kill you. One bite and you're probably dead. Especially where Dante and I were, like the situation we were in. We didn't have any way to get to people. I mean, I didn't have any kind of like cell phone plan until I did part of the way through, after I got this device. And that's what I mean. I didn't have any way to contact anybody, really, unless I had Wi-Fi. Man, there's so much to the story. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't just something like, yeah, I just was in a pretty hard situation, but it like maybe wasn't actually. It's like I was in the depth of it, man. I was. I have been so much throughout my life that it's just, that's what I mean. It almost wasn't even weird to me. The person who drove me down there, someone that goes to my church, he's in my ward, he's so kind of him to drive me down. Dante and I, back in April of 2026, at the end of April, he drove us down there. I told him, I'm like, well, I've been through so much in my life that this doesn't seem so crazy to me. And then that first night, we just slept outside, right outside the town boundaries on the edge of the desert. Just on the ground. First night down there, totally homeless, You want some perspective on who I am and the truth? Listen to it. Listen to the truth of it. Don't make your assumptions on who you think I am. I know sometimes I seem so silly or seem so weird or seem so ignorant or naive or whatever. You got to find out who I really am if you want to know who I really am. I'm only who I am. That's the case for all of us as human beings. Truth is truth. That's what I mean. It's only what it is. Let's figure out the truth to everything in life. Everything else is secondary to the truth. Opinions can come up on truth. Truth has to be there first. I mean, truth is truth. I'm so focused on truth, and people don't understand why. That's all there is truth. Everything else is a secondary thing. And that's something that takes a lot of context to understand if you don't. And it's something that is no kind of opinion or perspective. It's just what it is. Before you could have an opinion on it. I mean, you see what I mean? Truth is truth. And the truth is, it would have been enough if all I got out of that whole trip was this smartphone. Because I have filmed, now let's talk about why, okay? Yikes! I mean, I'll talk as long as I do in this, but it's just that I know that I'm talking about a smartphone, and this is a discussion on God. And it's like, how does this line up if you don't know? And I get that. Again, I have the perspective to see where people are coming into this from. Or potentially, at least, right? A lot of people, dude, are so different than a lot of people, dude. Oh, my heavens. I mean, even just the fact that I take time to pick up this spider during this, I just feel like that's cool. Just to show that that's authentic to me. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to put on some professional act behind the camera. I'm just documenting truth to the best of what I can. Not that I'll always be correct about anything, because I won't. But it's just what it is. It's just what it is. Can I just pound that into everyone, myself included? Truth is truth. Life's just what it is. You can get caught up on the pettiest of garbage, bro. Oh my gosh. The pettiest little things you can get caught up on. Or you can realize what life really is. It's only what it is. And no one gets to decide that. But God. The point is, I have filmed hundreds and hundreds of videos under In The Image Clothing Company's 5-word company name since I got this device, and that was in the beginning of May. It's only the 11th of August today, 2026. It's just been a few months. Same year. Same year, right? Same year as this whole story of stuff I'm talking about, being homeless, right? It's just been a few months ago, as of right now. My point is, the audio quality is just so much better. The video quality is so much better. The battery is so much better. The battery on this device is amazing. I'm not like trying to have some kind of, promotion for either of these products, but this Motorola Razr 2024 model, it's a flip phone, so it's a full-on touchscreen, but it flips. I mean, it's cool, which is great too, but it fits in my hand better, as because you can flip it closed, and so it doesn't alter my hand to hold it unnaturally, and then the hand traveling up to the shoulder traveling into the spine traveling down to the hips and down to the feet, which evenly oppose the center line of the human being, gripping arches inward to keep us vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull, right? In the Image Clothing Company's main side, allowing the body to work. That's why you're a clothing company? Yeah, and since the founding date, that's the reason, by the way. Just for those that have been confused. I've made it clear the whole time. Truth is truth. I don't get to decide it or change it. And the truth is, my family drove me out, bro. I'm not trying to place blame, but it's funny because now I'm allowed to be here again. I know I don't have the dog here and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not trying to say that I should get privileges that blah, 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 blah either, right? I don't care. It's not someone against someone else, but what it is unfortunate because it will always be the case that people will think they know what you're doing and why you're doing it and what your motives are and who you are, and they're just wrong. And so they create this whole narrative and perspective about either you or anything in life you can do this with. Anything. You can do this with anything. Just have an opinion on it, a perspective on it that's just wrong. And then because of it, you do things that you regret and that make you feel guilty and that you feel bad about and wrongful for doing. And it's not me versus someone else, but it's crazy to just see life as it is, because it's something that a lot of people don't do. It's something that a lot of people aren't able to do. It does take a lot of work. It takes willingness to put yourself aside and have to accept that life's just what it is, and you can't pretend that it's something different, or you're living in a delusion. Willing to be delusional. A couple episodes back of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. That's the title. Whatever number it is, 2 something in the teens. I'm pretty sure 200 something. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, the Jewish prayer, the Dianu, the Dianu, something like that is how you pronounce it. They say it would have been enough. They'll go through scriptural passages in the Old Testament of what God has done time and time again. And they say if God did this one miracle, it would have been enough. But then he also did this as well. If he would have only done that for us, it would have been enough. But then he also did this as well. And that's what I'm saying. Is this video's title, this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, really is. It's an audio only form as well as video plus audio, okay? In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's a podcast. One of our fourths to us under In the Image Clothing Company. But if it was only for the smartphone, it would have been enough. That's what I'm saying, is the entire trip down to St. George, Utah, and all the hardships, having to rehome Dante, at least temporarily, as far as I know, as of now. But yeah. And whatever else I could say, I had to struggle through and go through, and a lot of it was a lot of beautiful learning and stretching, molding, growing experiences for me, and that'll last me, through the rest of my life. Meaning, like, I'll be permanently changed from that experience, and a lot of beautiful ways of growth. I mean, it's amazing. I learned a lot of lessons. I got closer to God and a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah, But if nothing else came from that whole experience besides getting this little smartphone, it would have been enough. Because of what I'm saying. Just up until now, just a couple months later, give or take, well, it's about 3-4 months later, probably, however long it is, from from right around the beginning of May to right now, the 11th of August, without doing the math right now, that time frame is how long I've had this device so far, that this whole episode's about, really. It's about Jesus Christ, but him using anything and everything, and something as simple and small as a little smartphone would have been enough for God to do for me, because, I mean, God doesn't have to do anything for us, but he does. He's so perfectly ever present and in our lives. He knows everything about everything. He knows literally everything. And he knows us perfectly. And if he never did anything else for me in my life besides give me this little smartphone, as crazy as that could sound, I'm not just like trying to come up with an idea to make it a podcast episode about. That's the reason I made this episode, is because I was walking today and I realized that, like, man, that whole trip down there, if nothing came from it besides getting this smartphone, well, it still would have been worth it. I got given the money. I got given the opportunity to buy this thing. Well, the point is, on Facebook Marketplace, somebody was, a couple towns away. I think they were in Washington. There's only a few towns down there surrounding St. George, really, before there's quite a big area of just open space, just Utah desert, until another town. But there's Ivins and Washington and Santa Clara. I think they were in Washington, but far enough away that I couldn't have really walked there. I mean, it would have been an entire day's walk, and it was hot, and I had Dante. We wouldn't have done it. But they drove to the Sands Motel, and they delivered this little 2024 Motorola Razr to me. I paid him $200 for it. It's got little dead pixel, if you will, little very tiny spot on the screen where it's been dropped, and the pixels don't work. It doesn't display things properly on that part of the screen, but that doesn't affect it at all for me personally. I don't even notice it. I really don't. So I'm saying that because that's like the only thing wrong with it, really. It's just about as it would be if you bought it new. But it's 2026 and this is a 2024 model, but Yeah, I mean, it works perfectly fine. That little thing on the screen, I can see it now, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's just that I'm giving context on really just this as it is, just to show what's really happened with this and why this is such a big deal. They delivered it to me, and I paid them $200, and then either that day or the very next day, I started to film more In The Image Clothing Company videos. And now I was able to use this device, and it just was better quality for the sake of the permanent documentation. I was still doing what I could with this little iPhone 12 mini that's broken, and the audio only has half of the microphones, just one of the two working. And, the camera's not the best quality, and the battery's not very long lasting, and it overheated in the sun. This device overheats like crazy as well, though. This 2024 Motorola Razr. I'm not trying to talk down on the device. It's amazing in a lot of ways, at least. It's phenomenal for what I need it for right now. It's just what I need. But pretty much any device is probably gonna have a hard time in the heat. But I've lost probably around 5 full length, like 40 minutes to an hour long plus videos, because this device is overheated and didn't save the videos. This past couple weeks, I've lost 2 full length videos. But down in St. George when I was there, at least 2 down there for sure that I can remember, it just didn't save because the device got too hot, and an hour plus of work gone forever. Gone. So I'm not trying to say that I have everything under control, right? Like everything's so perfect and God is so great that you'll never struggle. No, God's so great that he'll let you struggle so you can grow through it. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Let Them Struggle. That's what God does for us, We grow through it. So I'm going to cut this because this did say 10% battery life remaining a few minutes ago. And I don't know if it's going to save this at all, if it dies before I get to stop it. This thing, it just works differently than the phone that I was using. Before this, I've had similar Android phones, before. I've never had a Motorola brand until this one. And I've lost quite a few videos, man. I mean, a lot of work, a lot of true work, deep, thorough discussions. Things like you can only adduct or abduct from a neutral. And, how soft shoe soles can cause heavy walking. And, certain videos, I just lost the full length videos. Yeah, at least 5, or at least right around 5. Mostly just because of the heat. But it's hot. Utah, it's a desert. It gets hot, and it's summer right now. It's just hot. So it is what it is. But thank you. I'm just going to cut it right there just so I can do what I can to try to see if I can make sure that this will save, and then we'll go from there, Episode 215 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Just know we've got to realize that even those little tiny things that God does, we've got to really realize what he's doing in it, and what does it mean for us, and why he's doing something. If we can tell that something actually came from God, you can look back and say, man, yeah, he did a huge thing with something so small, and if he never did anything else for me, well, that would have been enough. And that's a perspective that just has to kind of get developed over time. When I say perspective, I mean just an understanding of who God really is and how he really works in our lives. So, thank you.